yourself as illusion-like. So personally, I like, there's many similes, you know, like an illusion, like a dream, like the reflection of the moon in water, like a mirage. One of the similes is like a rainbow. And I like the example of the rainbow because in Switzerland there's quite often rainbows. As a kid, where I used to go to school by bicycle, and often when I drove home, there was beautiful rainbows. And I remember myself with the bicycle, sometimes wanted to go to the beginning of the rainbow. Yeah, I don't know whether you had that. So, because it's so clear, you know, it appears on that house there. So you drive towards that house to go to the beginning. And then, of course, the rainbow moves. You know? I remember that experience as a child. So actually, you know, when you see a rainbow, it appears to be there very clear, right? But actually there is no rainbow. If you stand there, the rainbow is somewhere else, you know. It's dependent arising on your position, the droplet of water, the position of the sun. So it creates this appearance of a rainbow there. But actually, if you were 100 meters further, the rainbow would be somewhere else, right? You wouldn't fall on that house, you would fall. So it's just an appearance to the mind, you know, depending on your position, the droplets of water, position of the sun. It gives this appearance of a rainbow there, but actually there's no rainbow there. Yet as long as the cause and condition to get together, there's the appearance of a beautiful rainbow, right? So there's no rainbow there, yet it appears. It's exactly the same thing with all phenomena. So the example of the rainbow is very good. You know, you see, all of these examples, they work for you if you have had that experience. If you don't, it's difficult to figure out what that means. You know, in certain countries, you have a lot of mirages. You know, because there's sand or hot surface and it's hot. You know, so you have this shimmering water lake all over the place. So, and then of course sometimes you go close and it always vanishes. So it's a very good example for you because you had that experience a lot. You know, it speaks to you because you had that experience. Same thing I remember as a child, a little bit older, as a teenager. I used to smoke hash, and I used to go near a pond at night, and there was this full moon reflecting on the pond. You know, so you really had the feeling there was this moon on the pond. It was so still, and I remember touching with my finger because it was so real. You know, it appeared really there. Right? So that's, if you had that experience, that example speaks to you because you had that experience. You know, it appeared to be there, and then you touch, and then of course it vanishes. You know, so it appeared to be a moon there, but there's no moon there. But as long as the cause and con, the real moon there, the water and your position, it will appear. Right? So all phenomena are like that. As long as the cause and condition are together, there's the appearance, yet it's not there. Right? So in post meditation, when you have meditated and not find anything, that's how things appear to you. You train your mind to see things like a rainbow, like reflection, moon in water, like mirage. Yeah? You try to see everything like that. So of course, for it to work in between session, you have to actually during the session use that example and play with it. You know, and then you go out, you walk around, and you apply that principle. You know, it's very powerful because actually we spend more time out of meditation than in meditation. So if you have tools to work with your daily life, you know, to see things as less solid, and you see, you might have worry with work, you worry with your children, with your life situation, but if you train your mind to seeing as illusion, like the whole level of anger, attachment, worry, stress decrease. The more you see it as illusion, like the less the situation won't change, but the level of stress about it changes because you see it as illusion, like as dream, like as rainbow, like. So you see, the stronger you see the situation, the more concrete you see the situation, the more attachment, the more anger, the more stress, the more worry you have. The more you see it as transparent illusion, the less worry, the less stress, the less unpleasant emotion you have about. It's the same situation, but depending on how solid and how light, transparent you see it, the less worry you have. So you see, the thing is that whether you worry or stress about the situation doesn't depend on the situation. It depends on how real and solid you see it, on how transparent you see it. For example, you look at His Holiness Dalai Lama. He has lost his country. There are millions of people suffering in his country, and he has responsibility for it. He could be stressed and worried all the time. And people come every day. Hundreds of people come and speak about their problems, their worry. Things like that. So I mean, you could be completely overwhelmed by that situation, right? But he is there, smiling, laughing, making jokes. Yet. And often people ask him, why can you be so happy, with all the problems that you face? It's like that. So if one has this insight into emptiness, everything becomes light.
About the compassion for other people's problems.
Yeah, so you can have the compassion. So you see, but the compassion is not a solid compassion, and the people's problem is not a solid problem. You can still have how to say, like in the Dalai Lama's case, you can have an illusory I having illusory compassion to illusory beings, and that compassion is real and everybody can feel it. But for him, there's no solid compassion, solid being, and solid self. There's a rainbow I having rainbow compassion towards rainbow living beings, and that's why it's light. It's not heavy. You see, how to say, for us, if there's a concrete me having a concrete person that concretely suffer, then I have this concrete compassion and it waits on me, because I would like to help and I cannot help. It's so solid. But they have this light energy and compassion, and they smile and laugh. And then when some people come, I saw that with the Dalai Lama. Some people, sometimes you have this in Dharamsala, this long row of people going to offer a kata to His Holiness, and you have this row of people. And then a person before me offer kata and speak about something terrible happening in Tibet. And His Holiness is there and almost weep with the person, So he's completely there, fully there with the person. Then that person goes, and then that person comes, and that person says something, and then he pours laughing. He's completely there. He completely, it's not like he's still with the person before waiting. No, he's there with that person, completely, fully there. But the next moment, he's completely there with the other person. It's very interesting. Whereas we carry that weight of that problem with us. So yeah.
One second. And then if you see things involved, and then how you really move on.
It's not exactly like that. I didn't express it properly. A person like His Holiness is not his state of mind. He sees things as rainbow all the time. He sees things as empty, all the time. So he see everything in need of bliss and emptiness all the time, right? And at the same time, he has this love and compassion for all living beings all the time. It's not like he has it sometimes and then he does something else. It's not like it comes and goes like we do. We meditate on emptiness, we see emptiness, then we meditate on compassion. He has both simultaneously all the time, right? So whatever he does, is always for all living beings. The very reason why he's there is for all living beings, right? So his mind is always imbued with that emptiness and compassion, but the way it manifests for different people, you see, then when he's that person, for that person he manifests like that, and then the next moment for that person he manifests like that. But his mind is always with these two states simultaneously, but the way he manifests is depending on the person he's interacting with, right? And like that, but his mind is always in that state, whereas we, sadly, we have it, we have some love and compassion while we meditate on love and compassion, then it disappears, right? Whereas he's never disappear, right? We have some insight into emptiness while we think about emptiness, then it disappears. He's never disappeared. He's always in this union of emptiness and appearance, and on the appearance side, his only reason, he's one with all living beings, and his reason of being is for other, right? So, and it's very interesting to see, when you're in the presence of His Holiness, you can see this thing. I remember I was once in New York at teaching of His Holiness, and there were maybe a few thousand people, and there were very few Buddhists, but His Holiness Dalai Lama is a little bit like Richard Gere, he's kind of pop star, so many people they are not Buddhists, they have no interest in Buddhists, but they want to go to see His Holiness Dalai Lama, and it's like a fashion show, people come, with their best dress, makeup, and, New York people, So what you do today? Oh, I want to see the His Holiness Dalai Lama. So I remember being, so in the break time, I went to the bathroom, and then in the bathroom, there was 4 or 5 guys talking, and they said, I haven't understood a word of what His Holiness was talking about. It was a text from Nagarjuna. They haven't understood. They were commenting to each other, I haven't understood a word of what His Holiness said, but I'm so happy. So just being in His presence, they haven't understood, they haven't understood the word of what He was saying, but just being there was nice, for them. So it's very interesting, because often I wonder, I go to His, and it's so complicated, what the text he comments on, and even myself after all these years, I have a hard time following what he says. I understand maybe 20% of what His Holiness said. So I wonder, what those people, which is the first time they come here, what do they get out of it? And then I was happy to hear that comment in the bathroom. Oh, they understand nothing, but yeah, they're happy. But that's because His Holiness is in that space, of bliss, emptiness, compassion. So you enter into that aura, and it affects your mind. But sometimes His Holiness or these beings, they make jokes, or sometimes they appear to be very mundane things, because for those people around them, that's how they can benefit. If they would speak about emptiness, they wouldn't get anything. So they speak about, how His Holiness liked to take apart watch when he was a kid, or, so something people can relate to, like that. So basically, the path is acquainting oneself more and more with this emptiness, this dependent rising, how things are like a dream. So the more you do that, the deeper you can go to that, the more flavor it has, the more your mental affliction decrease. So the more you think about emptiness, the more you experience emptiness, your anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, worry, stress becomes less and less. So you know whether your meditation on emptiness is valid or not. You see the effect on your mind. So if your mental affliction, your problem decrease, it means that you're touching it properly. If your level of problems remain the same, it means that you're not doing it properly. So you can see the effect on your mind straight. So that's one aspect. So at the beginning, one has to, emptiness is like, we are not sure, do I get it? Don't I get it? No. Do I do it properly? So this is doubt for many years, you try to figure out what emptiness actually is, So it takes many years, to hear it from different teachers, different book, different approaches, and slowly over time, you kind of get some kind of flavor of it. No? So you start getting what's called a correct mental image of it. And then you keep on going there, and then from having this veil of your conceptual understanding of emptiness, your idea of emptiness gradually disappear into actually touching emptiness, in actually experiencing it. Right? So it's a gradual process. But the thing is, for us, the problem we have is that we do emptiness a little bit for a few days, and then we do something else. And then we come back. We leave it aside, And that's why we never go very far, because we don't do it every day, regularly, over months and over years. We do it, we go to a teaching, or we read a book about it, so we involve into it, and then we put it aside and we read about something else, do something else. So we have this on, off, on, off, on, off, right? So normally we have to do it every day. So every day read a page about emptiness. Every day, your whole life. The Dalai Lama reads every day, Lama Zopa Rinpoche every day. You never reach a point where you can stop it. And the more you do it, the deeper your understanding, more precise, the clearer. And then from just doing it the half hour where you actually read the page, then it starts soaking you whole day. Even in the break time, even you go on a bicycle ride or you go for a walk, everything starts having this flavor of transparency, of rainbow-like, and then you end up with people and they have all this problem, and you just smile, you say, why do you worry so much about it? You start realizing that the way people interact with problems, yours starts being different. You're just lighter about it. It's the same situation, so sometimes you have work, in a work environment, and you meet people at the machine, where you have water, and everybody speaks about their problem, the problem with work, with colleagues and things. And you go there and you have, they have all this, I don't have any problem, what's going on, and I live in the same place, but I don't have this, I like that person, I don't like that person, the job, the boss did me this and that company, and and I was criticized. So all these things are still there, but it doesn't bother you. So my job is fine and my colleagues are fine. And everybody criticizes and backbites each other, and you don't see any problem in it. It comes from the mind, whether you take things seriously, concretely, or not. So you see the effect on your mind of emptiness over a while, over time. So that's good. But the thing is that what we do it for a while, and then we drop it and we do meditate on other things. And then we forget that. So that's how we don't make progress. We don't have the continuity. And it's with every meditation like that. You cannot get anywhere by doing it a week and then not doing it, and then doing it a week and then not doing it. Because it's the same thing with love, compassion, with preciousness, human rebirth, with devotion to the teacher, with anything. You cannot do on and off. It has to be, you know. So that's the real challenge. Ja, als je zo hoeft toe, especially. So that's the challenge. So it's better to start. That's why normally one starts from the beginning and stick with that meditation, you know, and then add on that. One never give up that meditation. One adds a second meditation and works with these two. Then add a third and one works with all three, and then add a fourth and works with all these four. Whereas we do one, we drop it, we do another one, we drop it, we do another one, and that's why nothing gets very deep. I remember I was once in Oceling in Spain, and I did a long retreat there. And after maybe 1 year of retreat, Geshe Zopa came. He wrote a nice commentary on the Lamrim Chenmo. It's 4 volumes, 5 volumes. And at that point, I was in the Lamrim on a section of impermanence and death. So he taught a course there. I didn't go to the course, but at the end he did a 1 week retreat, so I went to see him. You know? So and he asked me, "What are you meditating on?" And I said, "Oh, I'm meditating on impermanence and death." And then he taught. And then he said, "Even if your whole life you only meditate on impermanence, it's so worthwhile." And myself, I thought, "Oh, I'm going to do it a few weeks and then move on." You know? Yeah, impermanence and death is really beginner stuff. You know, I thought, you know, I will, you know, I will pass to something more, you know, juicy like emptiness, like you know, Boddhicitta, you know. You know. So I was kind of, why does he say that? You know, whole life you can, and he was serious. You know? And now I know what he means is that your whole life you have to keep on doing the same thing. Your whole life, like Milarepa, you know, once he had this realization, he said, you know, if in the morning I don't meditate on impermanence and death, I waste my morning. If at lunchtime I don't remember impermanence and death, I waste my afternoon. And in that night time I don't remember impermanence and death, I waste my night. And if you think about it, it's like that. Let's say in the morning, if you think, today is my last day, today I'm gonna die, what are you going to do that day? You make what is really worth, what is really useful. You will meditate, you train your mind, be aware of your karma, purify your negative karma, create positive karma, think about Boddhicitta, emptiness, think about your teacher, right? And then at lunchtime, if you think, oh, you know, I'm going to live a long time, so oh, let's have a cup of tea, let's go for a walk, you know. But if you think, oh, I'm going to die this evening, suddenly your priority completely change, right? Then you really train your mind. And in the evening again, if you think, oh, I'm going to have a few more years, let's watch Netflix and some popcorn. You know, let's have relaxed. You know, I did a good work. I meditated this morning, this afternoon. Not this night, I relaxed. Right? But if you think, oh, I'm going to die tonight and I'm not going to wake up, then instead of watching Netflix, I'm sure you're going to do some Vajrasattva or something to purify your mind and be ready and pray to your teacher, put it like that. So really, impermanence and that, if you have that realization, all the rest can follow. If you don't have that realization, the rest won't work properly. No? So it's very interesting to see how the beginner realization, precious human rebirth, implement are so important because they condition all the rest. Whether the rest you do it like a hobby or whether you do it seriously, completely depends on these two basic relationships. And then, of course, on top of that is the relationship with our spiritual teacher. It's a very important relationship. You know, how much progress you make depends on the relationship with your spiritual teacher. You know, there is a, how to say, you know, in Christianity, there's this relationship with God. You know, in Buddhism, there's a relationship with the gurus and with the spiritual teachers, like His Holiness Dalai Lama. You know, so first you have to check whether before entering to the. So look, say I'm teaching here. Doesn't mean I become your spiritual teacher. It doesn't mean that. It means that you're looking for a person that will lead you to enlightenment. So you look for that type of person. So that type of person has to have certain qualities. So that person needs to have ethic, concentration, wisdom, Boddhicitta, realization of emptiness, you know. And if you want in Tantra path, you have to have realization of clear light, illusory body. So you look for a teacher which has those qualities. Right? So how do you go about it? You know, it's not advertised in the newspaper. You know, and you don't find on internet looking person having those qualities and all these people show up, you know, so it doesn't work like that, right? How do you go about it? So you have to ask people around, you know, people which have teacher, and what are the qualities of those teachers, what lineage do they have, where they come from, you know, what are the qualities, you know, things like that. You start learning about them, and then you go to their teaching, and you see whether there's good communication, whether heart to heart you feel comfortable, you know? And then at some point, so you go, they're still not your teacher, you go to their teaching, but they don't become your spiritual teacher, right? And then at some point you make that commitment, right? You made a, okay, that person, I see him as Buddha, and he will lead me, he or her will lead me to enlightenment. So once you make that commitment, then the relationship changes. And that relationship doesn't end with death. You have that relationship with that teacher until enlightenment. You know, that person, you see, from his omniscient mind can help you till enlightenment, even if you're in completely different places. So then that relationship, the way you relate to him or her is very important. You know? Because, how to say, if you have pure view, you see him or as Buddha, so much blessing, inspiration can come. The quality of your meditation is completely different. You see, how to say, for us, when we meditate, it's like we have a stone in our heart. You know, we are very concrete. But due to devotion, your heart can become very soft. You know, you feel like you're having a sun in your heart that radiates, you know, love and compassion, and everything becomes very easy due to the blessing of the teachers. You know? So it completely depends. You see, if you see the person, the teacher, as an ordinary person, you get the blessing of an ordinary person. You see the Guru as an enlightened being, as a light energy body radiating. So you switch your mind, you see like that, and you get all these blessings. So it doesn't depend on the person, it depends on the way you interact with it. You know? So once one has that connection, so all how fast you go on your spiritual path depends on how clean you keep that relationship, how clean you keep that pure view. So much blessing comes if that relation is clear, and so much obstacle arise if you close the door of your heart towards this person. So you can have one teacher, you can have 100. It doesn't matter how many you have. What matters is how you see each of these teachers. If you see them all as Buddha, you receive blessing from all these Buddha. There's a saying from a Kagyu Lama: if the sun of devotion doesn't shine on the snow mountain of the Guru, the stream of blessing will not transform my heart, will not transform your heart. So the more you have this devotion towards your teacher, the more blessing you receive. And the more blessing you receive, the more inner transformation happens. You know? So that there's a level of magic in spiritual practices. From one side, one part, you make your effort, you make your work, but there's another dimension, a dimension of blessing. So so they say how quick or how slow you pass is depends on how you connect with that energy, how much blessing you're able to receive through your devotion, through your pure views, and how long your path is depending on how that doesn't happen. So that's why in the Lamrim is the first topic, because there's few reasons why it's the first topic. One is because it's very difficult to realize, it takes a very long time, so one trains it from the beginning. And the second reason is that the more advanced you're in that, the more easy all the rest becomes. Due to the blessing, all the rest becomes very easy. So often the lamas, they say, people like Milarepa, Lama Tsongkhapa, all these beings that reach enlightenment within one life. They didn't have a different body than us. They didn't have different teachings. They didn't have teachers that were more evolved than our teacher. Actually, in many cases, we have better condition than they had. We have had access to Western medicine, Western food. The environment is clean. We don't have all this problem with, that they have in Asia. So how come they reach enlightenment and we not? I think it's that these things of faith, devotion, very strong, and this renunciation. So they get it, and then they practice. So they say nowadays we could reach enlightenment within one life because we have access to the same teachings, the same teacher, same condition, the same body. So we could make it, but somehow our mind is more obscure. We have, especially in the Western, we have problem with devotion much more than Asian people. I think in the Asian culture is still more pervasive, or sometimes in the late Latin culture, also because of being Catholic, Catholicism is stronger. So they have this idea of saint, and they're more emotionally developed in that sense. So for these cultures, more easy. Was the Protestant and the Anglican, this culture that doesn't have access to mystery, to magic, to blessing, it's not in our culture, so it's difficult. Myself, I was brought up as Catholic, so as Catholic, you have this access to magic, the saints and the Virgin Mary, and so you have certain things. You touch this magic, in some ways. Whereas the Protestant, they don't have that. They negate the saint, and they go back to just Christ and Jesus. So for them, I think, as a kid, it's much you're much. I think we're much purer. We're less obscure by the memory of this life that hangs up. So as a child, you're much more open spiritually and feel things much more as a kid. Then as you grow up, going to adolescence, and things become heavier, so you lose it. But I remember some kind of spiritual intuition as a kid, very simple thing, as a very childish thing, but very heart opening. And at our Sunday school, we had the life of all these saints. We were reading. There was kind of cartoon little cartoon of each saint and a little story of what, you know, things that some of you might have had this kind of thing. And it was very inspiring as a kid. You had this beautiful role model of spiritual being instead of having role model of, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger or you know, or a Spice Girl or you had some how to say, some aspiration of something spiritual with qualities of love, compassion, renunciation. So you had these kind of people coming in your life. Whereas as a kid, if you have only Donald Duck and you know Popeye, you know, or, you know, these kind of things we had as a kid also. I think it's for those which are parents, I think it's good to introduce to your kids, you know, some kind of spiritual dimension while they are kids, while they're so fresh and open. Even if after they let it go, but to have them. And doesn't matter which tradition, because you know you have that in the Sufi tradition, you have that in the Hindu tradition, you know, any Christian tradition, you have this pure role model. You know? So to introduce them while they're fresh, while they discover, while they, you know, to give them that imprint, and they might drop the whole things when they become teenager and go to that crazy period. You know, they might drop the whole, but that imprint will stay, and then later in life they would reconnect. I think it's really important. I think, for example, my sister, they decide we are not going to teach them any spiritual. They can choose by themselves once they grow up. But I think it's a mistake because we don't open that experience to them while they're kid. So they have nothing to come back to. You know, they have nothing to go back to. So I think it's very unlikely, you know, because not having had that experience, they don't know what spirituality really is. So unless they meet, you know, some master later in life, like His Holiness, I think it's very difficult to get. Because spiritual development is not just intellectual knowledge, you know, it's something that's experiential. There's something felt, you know, something from inside you, you know, it's almost like, yeah. And this source of joy within you that certain thing awake. So sometimes it's some beings, sometimes it's some places, and sometimes it's just a beautiful sunset, you know. Or like in Buddha's case, he went out of his palace and saw some people, you know, experiencing sickness or death, and then he saw a yogi just sitting there peacefully, and that inspired him, you know, and because of that awakens this imprint, and then he left his life. So I think spiritual awakening can come from many places, you know. Sometimes some people get the big spiritual awakening watching E.T., you know, the movie. Yeah. Or many people, what's this you were mentioning? Matrix. Some people get big realization of emptiness watching Matrix. It's true, you know. So yeah. It's very interesting. So it can come from many, you know, many things. So I think that the conclusion of today, you know, I think is what I like to share is that if you want to make progress, you have to continue the same meditation over a long time. You can never drop it and pass to something else. What you can do is add something to what you do, you know, and go deeper. So let's say you meditate on preciousness of human life. So you have one way you learn, but then you have to read many texts from many different perspectives to keep it fresh. You know, same thing if you meditate on emptiness, you might get one way of meditation and you get it. But if you stop there, it becomes narrower, narrower, narrower. But if you keep on reading from different parts, it becomes richer and richer. So each meditation is like that. Love and compassion, you keep on reading for many different, and it becomes richer and richer. If you stop, if you only meditate the same way, it becomes narrower and narrower. With each meditation, it's like that. So you have to keep on doing the meditation and keep on reading about it from many different sources. Then, it becomes, and while doing it, if you keep, for those which have a spiritual teacher, so you keep that relation clean. So, for example, some people have a practice called 6-session Guru Yoga, where 6 times a day you visualize your spiritual teacher and you imagine him as Buddha, and then you make offering and then you make request and you absorb his blessing in your heart. So in certain practices, you do that 6 times a day, right? So one teacher in his commentary, Gelek Rinpoche, some of you might know him, he said, it says to do it 6 times a day in that practice. That doesn't mean that you cannot do it more than 6 times a day. He says that you have to do it a minimum of 6 times a day. And he says best is to do it 100 times a day. So I think it's that, you see, if you keep in your mind this role model of these enlightened beings, and whenever you do something, you think about what he or she would do. Actually, in America, there was a movie. I haven't seen it, but the title, I liked it. What would Jesus do? So I think it's a movie about this character, going about their daily life, and in each instance they would think, oh, what would Jesus do in that situation? Kind of facing everyday problem, how would Jesus react to this and that thing? I like that idea, So it's like that, in that situation, how would the Dalai Lama react, or how would Lama Zopa Rinpoche, how Kadrola would react? So how would you react from an enlightened perspective? And so thinking about uh, this this archetype of enlightenment that's symbolized by your guru. So you see, by connecting to that energy, you get this blessing in your life, in your everyday life, by thinking about him or her all the time. So for example, Milarepa, he used to travel quite a lot. So he would always visualize the guru in space and walk towards the guru, and always have the guru on top of his head and get blessing. So always being inseparable from his guru. I think that if you have this relationship with it, you see, it's very interesting because it might be someone you meet only once a year or one every 10 years, or you have certain yogis that have met their teacher only once. So in the 84 Mahasiddhas, there's some yogis that met the teacher only once, and then the teacher, in India you have these wandering yogis. So the yogi came into town, in the village, I gave this teaching not even only to him but to the village. But that person taught that person as his guru and followed the instruction he said, and then that wandering yogi disappeared, and that time there was no email, there was no internet, people were just disappearing, people would even not write letter. Guy disappeared, but he, in keeping his heart and through following this instruction, reached enlightenment. Meeting him only once. So it's interesting how that works. So it doesn't. Sometimes you feel, oh, that person is so lucky, so close to his holiness all the time. Must receive all these blessings. Then a few years later, you hear that person actually disrobed and went off with someone else. And actually, whereas we feel, oh, how fortunate it would be to be always eternal, and those which are around, they. So it doesn't depend on how close you physically are. It's a state of mind. Very interesting. It's a very deep topic. I could speak weeks on just on that, because it's very, how to say, how much you actually get, how fast, how things work, how, if you discover the magic of that relation, how to work with that. And it's something so alien to our Western culture that it really takes years to kind of figure it out. And then, of course, it's this meditation, precious human impermanence. So basically, you stick with that and you meditate on it every day, every morning, you know. And then once you have the realization of precious human rebirth, you add impermanence and death. So you keep on meditating on precious human. So you don't let it degenerate. You need less time on it because you have the realization. So sometimes, you know, some yogis, they can meditate on the whole path to enlightenment. It says the time it takes to go onto a horse. So, you know, within 20 seconds, they can go to all the realization of the path to enlightenment. It doesn't need to be long, but because they have spent so much time on the precious human rebirth, then just thinking precious human, they have their experience. Just thinking impermanence death, they have their experience. Because they have spent so much time, they have the, how to say, it's almost like you have, it's almost like, you know, you climb up a mountain. So at the beginning, you need to climb up the mountain, and then you can go faster and faster. Then you can take the funicular, you know, go up the mountain, and then you can actually jump on top of the mountain, you know. So you can actually get to the state of mind without knowing, having to go through the steps of getting there. You can, because you're so familiarized with that state of mind, simply thinking about it, you can have it, you know. So then you can go through all the stage very quickly. But you never let go any of the stage, and you do it every day, you know, then it never degenerates, you know. But we don't do it like that, you see. We spend some time on one topic, then we let go of that topic and do another topic, then let go of that and do something. So we never build up, you know. So that's our challenge, you know. And that is, I think, some part is our fault and some part is because we don't. You see, in ancient time, you would have the village guru, you would have the village swami, the village priest, and then basically you would discard back to that person. You would see him once a week, and you know, you would have this close connection from a very young age with that person, and that person would instruct you in this proper way of growing, you know. So you would get it. But we get, you know, to one teaching with this teaching, then that teaching there, from all these different topic, and they're not even come in the right order, you know, they come like that, you know. So then we try to figure how to make it work in ourselves. So it's, yeah, so it's just our situation is a little bit confused like that. But if one does it properly, you know, really deep progress can come quite, you know. They say if you do it properly, even the realization you thought you would never get, you can get, you know, if you do it properly. Because the things are, it doesn't depend whether you want it or not. It depends whether you create the cause for it or not. So if you do it, even if you don't want the result, it comes. You know, it's very strange. It's like that, you know. Even though you don't want to develop Shine, if you create the cause for it, it will happen. If you don't want to realize renunciation, but you create the cause, you will get it. You don't want to realize emptiness, you create the cause, you get it. You don't want to become a bodhisattva, but you create the cause, you become a bodhisattva. Because it's depends on cause and condition. So you create the cause and condition, you get the effect, whether you want the effect or not. Right? So it's once you know how the mind, what the mind is and how it works, how it develops, you know, and sadly it takes years to, you know, to kind of like that, unless you have a teacher with whom you live and can, you know, but most of us, we are not in that, myself included, you know, we don't live in that situation. So it's like trial and error, how you say trial? You know, we try this and that, and then over the years you start kind of, if you don't give up, you start, you know, try figure it out. But the thing is that you see, what I notice now, I have quite friends which practice since 30, 40 years, started together, and some people were monks and nuns, then they disrobed, they did other things, and they had their family and their kids, and they grow, and then, but they keep on working on it. So, and then we meet again, like that was funny, teaching over Lama Supreme in the south of France. So I met many students that I haven't seen for 20, 30 years. And at some point we were quite close, in the past. And then so we meet at this teaching. Then we share, how our life has unfolded and, where we are at in our life. It's one of the beauty of growing old, is that you have kind of, a time past, and then in Dharma, you have all these people you met together, different teaching. You catch up after some years. And it's kind of nice. It's enriching to see the experience of different people. And you can see that people which kept with their practice, they might, how to say, their life, even though for a while their life was wild because they got married and they had kids and they had to go work, and and then the children, the worry about the children and going through the adolescence of their kids, and and they, so all these things, and then the children left home, and now they start getting into retirement age, so that again they can spend their time practicing Dharma and things like that. And you see that, some have a profound development, and so much peace and happiness in their mind, and they have this life of where they plan to spend the rest of their life practicing. So beautiful, and they're so happy and peaceful, and it's nice to see the result of a life spent in spiritual development, not giving up. So it's beautiful. And then some people dropped it for some years, and then they come back and they say, actually, I remember I met a friend in France now, and usually I spend the night with him when I come and go. So he used to be monk at Nalanda Monastery at the same time I was there, and I think he was monk for 7 years, and then he disrobed. He got married and had a kid, and so he told me this time, every day I regret of having given back my vows. Every day I regret the time I was monk. He says it was the happiest period of my life. Every day I regret. And that was 30 years ago. Every day I regret having given up, and of getting involved in all these worldly things. Every day I regret. And now he's 60 or something. So with his wife, both, practice both, and it's a beautiful couple, very nice. But he says, I regret having given it up for so many years. So you see the different. So some people, they went to work and all these things, but they kept on practicing, kept on going to teaching and things like that. And then some people, they had some difficulty with the spiritual teacher or with certain things, and they completely gave it up. For some years, they said, "Oh no, I had a bad experience maybe with a teacher, or so they did some retreat and it was hard, and then they gave up. They went into work or family or sport or music or whatever. And then later in life, they realized that something, actually, that part of her life went missing, that spiritual food was missing. And then they come back, and when I talk to them, they say, "Oh, I'm so sorry to have wasted these 20 years. These 20 years, I didn't do anything. And then now my mind is much more heavy. The work is, I have put so much negative imprint, so much negative habit. It's much harder now to practice than it was before, because I have cultivated all these negative habits that are now hard to give up." So it's beautiful to see, to have that feedback from different people. And because I'm a teacher, and people think I have some experience, which is completely their projection, but they think, that actually I have some experience. So they come to tell me their experience. And I'm amazed what people, some people see Buddhas, they receive teaching from Buddha. Some people are able to bring the wind into the central channel, completely bliss out into clear light. And I'm like, wow. I'm completely impressed what some people experience, Wow. So some people really get some profound results. So it's beautiful to see, to have that feedback. And then I compare, oh, okay, these people have this incredible experience, and that person is so miserable, and that person gave up Dharma for all these years now again, and that person has continued, and now it's all this, beautiful. So you can see the different pathway that people follow, and you see the result, So that's the beauty, when you're new in Dharma, everybody is new and you don't know these things. But when you grow older, you speak with each other and you see the different spiritual paths that people followed and where it led. So that's the beauty of, of my situation, of my position. And people come to tell me their, their story. So definitely, I think if we make some effort, the problem is that our Western lifestyle is so unconducive. If you look the news, if you look internet and Netflix, you have very few stories about Milarepa, all these yogis, the saints, and things like that. The type of emotion that is conveyed is completely opposite. It's glorifying the mental affliction. Being angry and self-righteous is good. Having attachment is good. Having desire is good. Being jealous is, it's good. Because it pushes you to become better. So all these negative emotions are glorified. The passion about football, about hockey, tennis. It has these sports stars become like gods, the things that you aspire to become. And the movie stars and the politics, the energy they convey is opposite, completely opposite. So it's actually hard, you try to develop spiritually, but all the input you have from the outer world, what people admire, what they look for, is opposite to that. So it's actually hard. That's why you need a spiritual community, you need like-minded friend, to inspire each other. Otherwise, it's very difficult. So in Asia, like India, Nepal, you still have many. I don't know. Most of you might have been to India, Nepal. You go to any rickshaw, they have their small altar. You go to any shop, they have their small altar. It's very spiritual. And in Latin America, same. In many places, they have their altar in their shop, in their, in their car. It's very spiritual. This energy is very spiritual. And in Asia, each one has their own god, their own deity, their own thing. So you're very flexible. You don't see it's only one way. So all our God, all God is one. Everything is same. Very easy. But every morning, the first thing people do in the shop, they light a candle to the deity, they put a wreath of flower and an incense, and they make some prayer. Often so that they have good business that day, but nevertheless. Yeah, the shopkeeper, so you have this kind of spiritual energy in the air. Yeah, it's very spiritual. Whereas here in the West, there's nothing like that, Um, so you see how, for me, it was like that. I used to go to India for 6 months a year, and my mind, my soul was soaked in that spiritual energy. In those times, I wasn't even Buddhist. I was more interested by Hindu things like yogis, sadhus, kind of weird kind of shidam smoking babas and whatnot. you know. But there was this magic, this kind of airy feeling, You touch, you see that there's more than meet the eyes. There's another dimension there, It's very, in India, it's very, very there. You have all these temples, all these sadhus, all this spiritual stuff going on. So there's a dimension there. And then you come back to the West, and all this is so dry. It's not there. Everything is concrete, solid, things like that. Then at the beginning, I remember. I don't know. I'm just talking, right? So my first trip to India, I went overland by bus and train. Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and you reach India through Amritsar. There's the Golden Temple, and there I entered the Golden Temple. And for 3 days, all the chakras were open, and I was completely blissed out. I didn't need sleep for 3 days and didn't need food. Completely blissed out. So, and then the experience fade, and then so I was traveling along in India. So I ended up in Goa. Then I lived along on a beach. Then I met up with some sadhus and went to Hampi, Hospet. So there's a city where all thousands of temples, very small temple, many temples. So I lived there in a temple. And then went to South India, and then so my 3 months Indian visa ran out, so I went to Sri Lanka. And then in Sri Lanka, I had problems to get the visa to go back to India. So it was January or February. And so I said, well, let's go back to the West, make some money. So I didn't have any more clothes. I only had a longi. A longi. Because, of course, in Goa, I had my rucksack and I put it in a bush. And I went, away. And when I came back to the bush, there was no more rucksack with all my stuff. So I just bought a blanket that was laying down, and I had a blanket like that. So that was my 2 possessions. And I had a bag, and I had a flute, and my little bag, So that was my possession. And I slept in railway station, or with sadhus around fire, kind of like that. And then so I was in Sri Lanka. I couldn't go back to India. So I thought, let's go back to the West. So out of my longi, I made a trouser myself. And I cut the trouser, my longi, and make a trouser. And then I had flip-flops, because barefoot, I thought at least I put on flip-flops. And I had one of these shirts, things like that. So the cheapest plane was through Aeroflot. So I ended up in Moscow with my flip-flops, and my, very light clothes in February, and it was freezing. And people, so I didn't have any visa, so you can, for 24 hours, they show you on a bus tour. You cannot leave the bus, but they bring you on a tour of Moscow, and they bring you back to the hotel. You're not allowed to leave the bus in those days, So back then, but everybody was looking at me, heavy. And I remember my plane landed in Zurich airport. So I had an uncle living in Zurich. So I went to his place with my flip-flops in February in Zurich. And I was in the bus and train, and I was smiling and so happy. And see everybody, everybody, looking at me. And I was smiling, completely happy, things like that. So my state of mind lasted a few months, and then I became like everybody else. you know. And I remember the way I was before. I said I just wanted to go back to India, you know, because there I was so happy, you know. It's interesting, you know, how. And then I thought, but what was it about India that made me, you know, just the blessing of around, you know, that spirit, you soaked in that spiritual culture. Was that might have been here maybe a long time ago, but has disappeared. So I think what you see, what you experience in Asia like that, you can get it through the Guru, you know, through Guru devotion, you get that blessing wherever you are. You can soak in that energy if you can attune. You see, that energy I experience in India is also here in the West, but it's more hidden. You don't have stupas, you don't have statues, you don't have temple, you don't have all these people queuing up to get blessing from this and that Swami and that, you know, you don't have that culture, but it's there too. You know, the Daka, Dakini, the spiritual beings, the fairies, the saint, all that magic is there, but we have to establish that connection again. So how quick you make progress is how much you can tune that energy, you know, to that blessing. So maybe to conclude, we just sit for 2-3 minutes. So try to reflect on this day and try to bring it down to one experience you had or one insight that you want to keep from this day. What's the essence of this day you got that you want to keep in your life, that you want to cultivate? And let's rejoice in this good fortune we had to meet today and sit together and speak about spiritual matter and develop some positive thoughts, some positive insight. Feel very happy, rejoiced to have fortune And we make prayers, aspiration that we may have many more days like that in our life. We meet more and more teachers, more and more qualified spiritual beings, and that they inspire us and they show us the path that we may cultivate those experiences and get our self-realization and ourself being able to inspire other people. And we dedicate that for us and all living beings to quickly generate all the realization from proper reliance on the teacher up to enlightenment. And may all these people that rely on us ask us to pray for them, ask our help, may due to our merit we're able to benefit them. From our heart we send rays of light energy, healing the people that we know are sick physically or mentally. So we pacify all the mental affliction and awaken the mind of devotion, of love, compassion. And may our spiritual aspiration, our spiritual quality never decrease, but always increase more and more. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Thank you.
And those who have time tomorrow, we can continue tomorrow morning. I think 10 o'clock, right?